Recently, I've had the pleasure of having a couple conversations that were personal milestones for me in the sense that sitting down with someone like George Janko or hosting someone like Brenna Blaine or traveling to Ryan Panita's event, you get a lot of time to reflect, to think, but ultimately to hear feedback from the audience. And believe it or not, I end up reading a lot of your guys' comments, which can be a good or a bad thing. And I finding certain themes of the things that are resonating well with you. Specifically, it seems like there's a huge number of folks who watch this channel that are struggling with a sense of being stuck. And I just wanted to pause and share my thoughts on this and ultimately get to the point of, what if I told you you didn't have to remain stuck? What if I told you that there was something more on the other side of whatever mountain or hurdle you're facing right now that can eventually cause the breakthrough to happen so that you don't stay in this consistent feedback loop where you feel like you're moving, but you're not making any real progress? Okay, let me explain. So I think when we get into conversations of what happens after we surrender our lives to Jesus, we give our lives to God, we start declaring ourselves to be disciples and reading the Bible and going to church and all these things. I think we kind of fall into two extremes. And I unfortunately see this within our community here. I think extreme number one is we can easily slip into Christian nihilism, where you just see the world in a sense of despair. Everything is crazy. It's an election cycle. The rainbow flag people have stolen the entire month of June. We forgot about anything else that's going on. And man, the world's going to hell in a handbasket. I'm saved. I got my health insurance. I can't wait for Jesus to return and scoop me up from this world of sin. The other extreme is that you get saved and you get born again, but you really just revert back to the world's ways of pursuing any sort of change or development, meaning that you go the opposite extreme of Christian nihilism. You go into full-on self-absorbed. The world is about me. I am the center of the universe. I need to make an impact and get rich and make a legacy and have people remember my name. And you start getting into goofy things like trying to learn how to drop ship or trying to get into an MLM and get all your friends at church to join your business. And then all of a sudden your friends are looking at you side-eyed because they don't want the knives you're selling. You don't really want the knives you're selling, but you got the inventory, so you got to move the knives. I know someone's relating to what I'm talking about right now. And I see these two extremes. One is, man, life sucks, the world sucks, gonna bury my head, and hopefully things get better. The other extreme is, I need to do it. I need to do something to change my life and give me value and me a sense of dignity. And unfortunately, I think both of those extremes are unhealthy and honestly unbiblical. One extreme would lead you to the love of money and the pursuit of worldly accolades at the expense of your own soul. Jesus so rightfully said it, what good is it gain the whole world and lose your soul? And in my life, I have been that guy where I have pursued wanting to be an artist and wanting to make a name for myself and traveling the world and all these different things, only to find that at the end of the day, you're left feeling just as empty than before you started all these things. The other extreme is when I first got saved, I was very afraid. It was around the time of 9/11. It was a really dark time in American history. And I found myself just kind of being happy that I was saved and kind of waiting for Jesus to come back at any moment. And I believe that Jesus can't come back at any moment, for the record. But without any real desire to usher in goodness or beauty or contribution to help people in experiencing the kingdom of God. And the issue with being stuck is if you drift to either of these extremes, you're going to deal with the consequences of viewing the world in a nihilistic or self-absorbed paradigm. But I would like to propose to you that regardless on where you're at and how you're feeling and the issues that you're going through, regardless on if you are feeling like you have way more bills at the end of every month. Regardless on if you're feeling like there are patterns and sin in your life that are keeping you away from walking in the fullness of everything Jesus has for you. And I'm not talking about the times we slip up and we say a bad word or we do something we shouldn't do in the spur of the moment. I'm talking about the practice of said things that you know are counterintuitive with the identity that Jesus has for you. When you are in these moments and they end up impacting your mental health, they end up impacting your spiritual health, they end up impacting your financial literacy and your ability to earn and provide, it could feel very dire, as if nothing is going to change. Because the reality is, the issue about our present moment and our present circumstances is they feel so permanent. They feel so permanent. They feel like whatever you're going through right now is just what your life is always going to be forever and ever and ever. And that's just not true. Now, the truth is also not favorable to many of our instincts to just want to get a microwave result from our situation, wanting it right now. I feel discontent about my situation, about my mental health, and I just want to put the bag of popcorn in a microwave, and I want to have some nice fresh popcorn in 2 minutes, 3 minutes. And the reality is that to cultivate a godly life, to cultivate a life of God's purpose over your life, requires some time. It requires being willing to do the things that God has for us over a long enough time horizon for the benefit of other people. And I think this is where many of us get stuck, is that the present moment feels so permanent that we don't even know where and how and what to do. And so the question becomes, is it the moment that's making you feel bad, or do you feel bad and that's keeping you stuck in this moment? I don't know how the answer for that, but what I do have the answer for is that as we're seeking something different, as we're seeking God's will in a specific area of breakthrough, as we're seeking God's will for breakthrough in our mental health, breakthrough in those self-destructive sin patterns, those things that are keeping us in shame and in shackles, as we're looking for breakthrough perhaps in our finances, is, hey, Ruslan, I heard of Dave Ramsey and I tried to do the baby steps, but you don't understand. The more I save, the more unexpected expenses come my way. Hey, Ruslan, I did the thing. I pursued the girl the right way. We didn't have any sex before marriage, but then we got married and everything became harder, and now my marriage is hanging on by a thread. I did the things the right way, but I didn't get the result that I thought I would get. And I think it does a disservice to our perception of God, as if God is some sort of genie, and if you do a specific math formula, you'll get a very specific result in a very specific time. And let me just tell you, that's not how it always works. That sometimes there's outside influences. Sometimes you can't control the people around you. Sometimes you have to be patient and wait longer. Your time horizon is distorted on how long something really takes. I'll give you a practical example in my personal life. When we got a hold of the idea that, man, we had really made a mess of our finances in terms of how we handled money, right? Based on Jesus's teaching in Luke 16 and Matthew 25 of, he is who is faithful with little will be given more, and he who is unfaithful with little will not be given more. When we looked at that and we began to say, hey, we want to get better at saving, at giving, at living on a budget, and ultimately pay off our debt, we thought that was going to happen within a couple of months. But the reality is that it took almost 18 months to pay off all of the debt, that the time horizon needed to be longer for our expectation of walking through the process. Now, could God have magically sent a check in the mail for $100,000, the amount of debt that we had, to just wipe it all out right away? Yes, he can do those things, but God has also created a reality that has a cause and effect. God has also created a world where is broken and is sinful, and that we get to navigate and we get to suffer and we get to experience trouble, not because God is just some killjoy in the sky that wants to allow us to experience these things, but because God knows that us walking through these processes, God knows that us going through the fire ultimately refines us on this side of eternity. And the question is, Are you willing to go through the fire? Are you willing to suffer? Are you willing to do the hard things over a long enough time horizon? And the good news is that the hard things don't have to be these monumental fork in the road moments, that the hard things can be breaking down into daily non-negotiables that you could implement into your day that do all of the thinking and all of the debating on if you should do the task ahead of time. And I'll make it real simple. Because I value scripture, for me, a daily non-negotiable is to read the scripture. It's not up for debate. Because I value prayer, it's a daily non-negotiable for me to write in my prayer journal and spend time praying. Because I value exercise, a daily non-negotiable is for me to go and exercise, even if I'm just going on a walk. Because I value my mental health and my physical health, the daily non-negotiable is to go outside and get fresh air and sunlight. Now, I don't go outside once and all of a sudden always feel better. I don't do one workout and all of a sudden have abs. I don't say one prayer and all of a sudden the mountains move. Sometimes it requires patience. Sometimes it requires allowing the things to work out. And here's the interesting part is I think sometimes we want the microwave results without understanding that the macro issue is us. We want to force God's hand instead of allowing God to guide us by his hand in his time for his purpose over our lives. And so as I'm thinking about the pressure and the pain points that a lot of you guys are going through, I just want to encourage you, find one thing that you can start with to change the trajectory of whatever that issue is. I know I'm speaking in a generalized sense, and I know there's a wide spectrum of people here going through all sorts of issues, but one thing that can change the trajectory. And what that thing is, in a psychological sense, in the book Power of Habit, that is called a cornerstone habit, which is interesting because Jesus is the cornerstone which our entire faith is built on. That one cornerstone habit can change the entire trajectory of your life. I'll give you a personal example. In 2018, when I was pursuing music as a full-time artist, I was in a very, very unhealthy place. That could testify to midnight runs to Peterson's Donut Corner, yerba mate, staying up until 2 or 3 in the morning, working on music, but not getting anything done. The toll, the pressure, the agitation, the irritability that I had, I was not in a good place, and I was overweight. And I remember asking Zach, this is so funny, to take a picture of me with my shirt off because I was already kind of dabbling in the gym, and took a picture. And there was something about seeing myself on a photo, not in a mirror, with my shirt off, that sparked this desire to honor God more with my body. I had just came off tour. That was hard because of the longest I had been gone away from my family. I wasn't feeling good. I had a lot of mental fog. I had a lot of issues in just my own conflict management, intense relationships. And so that moment led on to me discovering that I needed to adjust some things. And the main thing I adjusted, believe it or not, is I just simply adjusted the time I woke up in the morning. And that was the cornerstone habit that transformed everything about my life. Because here's what I discovered is I know self-control is a fruit of the spirit, but oftentimes in these sorts of conversations, the idea of discipline is overrated. You see, discipline is a byproduct of the systems and the processes we create. And so as I adjusted my morning routine by simply waking up at 6 a.m. and going outside first, going to the gym, reading the Bible, praying, as I adjusted that one thing, all of a sudden, I started to feel better fairly quickly, mind you. I started to be more closer to God and feel more consistent and congruent with my professed identity as a Christian. And I did it for just a few months, and the physical changes to my body were fairly rapid. That waking up in the morning gave me more time to spend with my family, to prepare my meals, to work on my responsibilities with music and everything I had going. And so within a very short amount of time, everything changed about my life. And it culminated to taking those same principles that changed everything about my life and transferring them into beginning to build this YouTube channel and beginning to build everything we do here now. That the proof of walking through the process of incremental change, I was able to translate to eventually building what we see here. And now, by the grace of God, we're at well over 850,000 subscribers, reaching approximately a million unique users a month. And there's 4 of us full time. And this is like beyond anything I could have ever comprehended when we started taking the channel seriously at the end of 2018. And so I say all this with the hope that this would infuse some degree of hope, which is a bit redundant, I know. I say this with the hope that this would infuse some hope, that regardless on what your situation is and the discontent you're feeling, know that your identity should first and foremost be rooted in Jesus and what he says about you. And then second of all, if we really believe the things that Jesus says about us, then we get to flesh out making minor incremental changes to our daily routine that will yield massive fruit over the long haul. And that's what I did, and that's what I continue to do, and I continue to tweak and be intentional about my day. And a lot of, listen, a lot of things that I get to tweak now, they're byproducts of luxury. Like I built a gym in my backyard so I can cut out the 7-minute drive and the friction of getting to the gym and getting back from the gym. I built, that's a luxury. I get it, right? But what happens is when you build these systems in, you get margin. And when you get margin, margin begets more margin. And margin just keeps things away from being too close where you feel like you're going to unravel. And so find that one cornerstone habit and implement it immediately. And know that discipline and quote unquote success and feeling fulfilled are all byproducts of implementing these systems that help you navigate what you've been given. So I hope that spoke to somebody. If it did, please do me a favor. Leave a comment with your thoughts and go to blessgod.summit. What I'm hoping to do is in January of 2025, specifically January 30th, 31st, and February 1st, we are going to have a 3-day summit in Southern California, Orange County to be specific, with these exact themes spread out across 3 days with different experts, different apologists, different speakers, some friends of mine, some new friends of mine that you haven't seen on the channel yet. And I want to get as many of you there to be in person. We don't need another conference with more information. We need a conference that allows for connection and imparts information that leads to transformation. And that's what I believe we're going to do, is to condense as much of this in an environment where you can walk away transformed and living your life in a way that honors God with your time, your talent, and treasure. So the link is pinned below, blessgod.summit. What that will do is allow you to sign up for the email list. And the moment we announce it, you will be first to get access to discount tickets and get more information. All right? I'll see you over there. Peace.